Alaikum warahmatullah. This is our second lesson in which we are going to focus about two main things, which are translation methods and translation strategies. And we can find some overlapping between these two concepts, the methods and the strategies. We can say that method could be as an umbrella and the strategies are under this umbrella. So here are some of the methods that we're going to tackle in this presentation, and they are we have literal translation, semantic and communicative translation, adaptation, free translation, idiomatic translation, and metaphorical translation. And even though each one has a specific, let's say, name, again, you can find some overlapping, for example, between communicative translation and free or idiomatic translation. These strategies are translation by addition, by deletion, or translating by a more general word, paraphrase, or the use of two techniques. So literal translation is called also word for word, in which the translators translate one word at a time in the same order. For example, we have here this example. Sami is a student. Literally it's طالب يكون سامي, but it should be what? Sami طالب. Sami طالب. Or when we say he's a chicken, literally it's هو دجاجة, but intended meaning is what? Is إنه جبن. One of the problems of literal translation is loss of collocational meaning. For example, when I say hand a friend a letter, literally it's رسالة صديق يد. And when I say they passed and they passed a new law, or sorry, the court passed a new law, قانون جديد مرت المحكمة. However, the correct translation is يسلم صديقا رسالة and سنت المحكمة قانونا جديدا. Also, we have a problem here losing the idiomatic expression. For example, when I say sitting dog, literally it's بطة جالسة. However, the intended meaning is هدف سهل. And when I say beat around the bush, it's not شجير حول اضرب, but it's يراوغ, to not to go to the main point directly. Okay, the second method is semantic and communicative translation. Communicative translation aspires to create the same effect, and focus here on the word effect, created by the source language text on the target language reader. Even though there is some manipulation, the translator may add, delete, or paraphrase to go or achieve this effect. Number 2, communicative translation concentrates on the message, and the main force of the text tends to be simple, clear, and brief. It's unlike semantic translation, which sticks to the original text. It communicates the meaning at the expense of accuracy. The meaning at the expense of accuracy. Okay. Semantic translation attempts to render as closely as the semantic and syntactic structures of the second language allow the exact contextual meaning of the original, which means that it focuses on accuracy more than being natural. So it focuses on accuracy more than being natural. So we can say that semantic translation is accurate. However, communicative translation it is natural. We can say that semantic translation respects the source author or the source text more than the communicative translation. We can say that communicative translation is oriented toward the target reader. However, semantic translation is oriented towards the source reader or the source text. The source text, not the source reader. This example could exemplify and make things clear. For example, when I say لقد أثلجت صدري. Semantically, when we translate it semantically, we can say you freeze up my heart. أثلجت, you freeze up my heart. But let's take in consideration that cold is connected with, let's say, is not connected with positive things here in Arab countries, since we rarely or seldom there is cold or seldom there is snow here in the Arab countries. So communicatively we can say, or we can translate it as, you warm up my heart. When I say you warm up my heart, here when I translate it to English, in which there is usually snow and usually the weather is cold, I don't translate it as you freeze up my heart semantically, because warmth in English countries or in English communities are associated with positive things, unlike cold. So here the communicative translation could achieve the effect of the message that the reader or that the speaker wants to convey. However, semantic translation focuses on being accurate on the expense or at the expense of being natural. Okay, let's go back to communicative translation, and it's usually used in colloquial phrases, greetings, compliments, and road signs. For example, in greetings, colloquial phrases or colloquial greetings, long time no see. We can translate it as زمان هالقمر بابان, but be careful, this is not a standard Arabic. No smoking for some, let's say, signs, ممنوع التدخين. This is a communicative translation. If you want to translate it semantically, لا تدخين, but it's not natural. When you say or when you read something in Arabic, لا تدخين, you wouldn't find it natural to understand. So we make some manipulation to make the translation more natural for the target reader. لا شكر على واجب, for a compliment, we translate it as don't mention it. Charity begins at home. الأقربون أولى بالمعروف. Another example here is diamonds cut diamonds, which is communicatively translated as لا يفل الحديد إلا الحديد. Diamonds in Arabic culture or in the Arab culture has positive associations related to beauty and noble characteristics, while iron is associated with strength and physical power. So this is why we choose to say al-hadid, not what the direct or the literal meaning of diamond. Another example here, we have a conversation. Hi Anne, what's happening? Not much, you? Now, the communicative translation will be what? مرحبا آن، ما أخبارك؟ آن، لا جديد، ماذا عنك؟ لا جديد، ماذا عنك؟ Okay. Now, under communicative translation, we can say that there is something called cultural approximation, but cultural approximation could be, let's say, more specific for terms or at the word level. Cultural approximation is a translation strategy whereby a cultural specific expression in the source language is translated into a cultural substitute in the target language. For example, when we say God, sometimes it's not culturally acceptable to say Arab in Islamic, let's say, cultures, so the best translation is Allah, or like mother, like daughter, مثل أم العروس. Adaptation. Adaptation here is the freest type strategy, or the freest type of translation which is mainly used in translating plays. Focus on the word plays here. Adaptation is usually mainly for plays, comedies, and poetry. The themes, characters, and the plots are usually preserved. The source language culture is converted to the target language culture, and the text is rewritten. For example, we have this extract from a play. And how are all your people down at Chelsea? Who told you my people come from Chelsea? The Arabic translation has some adaptation or some manipulation to fit the target reader. So it's translated as وكيف أهلك في سرجيتا. Sargita is a city in Lebanon. However, Chelsea is it's located in Inglaterra. It's a city there in Inglaterra. طيب وشو عرفك إني من سرجيتا? Who told you my people come from Chelsea is translated as شو عرفك إني من سرجيتا. Okay, here is another example. I'm gonna upload the PowerPoint to you. We have a free translation which could overlap with adaptation, but adaptation is, let's say, is the freest type. Free translation, as Newmark said, is to focus on the content rather than the form of the source text. It focuses on the content, المحتوى، المعنى، وليس بالضرورة على الform of the source text. For example, we have an English concept here, cartel. Cartel معناها or means a group of different companies that agree to increase profits by fixing prices and not competing with each other. Now literally, if we want to translate it, اتحاد الشركات لزيادة الأرباح من خلال تحديد الأسعار ووقف التنافس بينهما. You may find that this definition is lengthy, and such lengthy rendering may distract the target reader. So, translators adopt a general translation, which is اتحاد المنتجين. اتحاد المنتجين could convey the content, not the form, which is too lengthy. The form here is too what? Is too lengthy, كتير طويل. Okay, we have here like another strategy, which is descriptive translation or paraphrase between brackets. Descriptive translation is a translation strategy whereby an expression in the source language is paraphrased in the target language by describing it conceptually. This often occurs when the translator comes across referential or cultural gap. Focus here on the word cultural gap. يعني مصطلح موجود في ثقافة معينة ومش موجود في ثقافة تانية والعكس صحيح. Where the source language concept is completely missing in the source language culture. Here we can talk about the Islamic or Sharia cultures like zakah, عدة, tayammum, صلاة الجنازة, صلاة الغائب. All these terms are not found in the target language, and here this is why we can find some cultural gap. So it does not exist in the experience of the native speakers of the target language. Here are some examples. For example, zakah. Zakah is a compulsory. We can provide the reader with the definitions of these terms. For example, we can say zakah. It's a compulsory charity in Islam when income conditions are met. By the way, here you can also translate it or borrow it as it is. Borrowing is one of the strategies, so you can write it as zakat, for example, being taken into consideration that the target reader, for example, is a Muslim or is Muslim. So you can say zakat, or you can using borrowing strategy بمعنى to take it as it is, or to make a paraphrase, definition, or descriptive strategy. Tayammum, again the same thing. In all these cultural specific items you can borrow the term as it is and then provide some explanation for the term. For example, tayammum, making ablutions with earth by Muslims when water is scarce or missing. bold face بمعنى خط كبير أو خط غامق عريض، زي الخط اللي هنا عندي هذا بسميه bold face. speed cameras هي مش كاميرات السرعة، إنما هي كاميرات مراقبة السرعة. So عملت لها paraphrase like to be much more clear. عدة المرأة, a period of Muslim women must observe after the death of her husband or after divorce. Or we can say عدة, like to borrow it as it is. Like borrowing could be applied to all cultural specific items. Borrow it and then provide a definition or an explanation for this term. So عدة is a religiously, or between brackets, a religiously sanctioned waiting period during which a woman may not marry. We have here metaphorical translation. Metaphorical translation involves the translation of source language metaphors into the target language metaphors, or to transfer the message of the metaphor. Let's read this metaphor or this sentence which has a metaphor, and then to see how we can translate or use metaphorical translation. Ahmad will be flogging a dead horse if he ever tries to do a PhD in linguistics. Now the metaphor is here. Flogging a dead horse. Flogging a dead horse. Horse حصان وديد ميت. طيب, let's see how we can metaphorically translate it. Now the first two translations what exemplifies metaphorical translation. For example, the first one, ستذهب جهود أحمد أدراج الرياح إذا ما حاول أن يحصل على شهادة الدكتوراه في اللغويات. أدراج الرياح, تذهب أدراج الرياح is the metaphor, and be careful that it shouldn't be translated literally. No, a metaphor in English can be translated into another metaphor that achieve the same purpose or the same function. سيعود أحمد بخفي حنين. خفي حنين is another metaphor. However, the last one is a sentence without having any metaphors. سيضيع أحمد جهده عبثا إذا ما حاول أن يحصل على شهادة الدكتوراه في اللغويات. Okay, we have here other strategies such as translation by addition. For example, we have the source sentence here منذ الهيمنة التركية, which is translated as since the days of Turkish hegemony. So we add the word days, or open competition, which is translated as منافسة حرة أمام الجميع. Here we add the word or the phrase أمام الجميع. Another example, when I say maternity wear, I add the word خاصة ملابس خاصة بالحوامل. Okay, we have here also translation by deletion. For example, in reporting news in some let's say Arabic channels, we can hear such an utterance: نقلا عن الصحيفة البريطانية بأن هناك انفجار في مدينة عدن في اليمن، هذا وقد أسفر انفجار عن كذا وكذا، وجدير بالذكر أن سيارات الإسعاف. Now such expression like هذا وقد وجدير بالذكر could be deleted and the target what لا مش so, and their deletion may not affect or couldn't affect the, let's say, the content or the main content or the meaning of the text. Okay, another example here. الرئيس الأمريكي بيل كلينتون أكد مساء أول من أمس. 2 days ago, the American President Bill Clinton confirmed. So the deletion is for مساء أول من أمس. And we have here translation by using a more general word. For example, we have mother tongue. tongue بمعنى لسان، ولكن المقصود فيه ليس اللسان إنما اللغة الأم، وممكن نحكي اللغة الأصلية. In the course of the week, which means during a particular period of time, is translated into في بحر الأسبوع. Or we have this example, the volume of foreign trade. Here foreign means أجنبي, but the accurate translation for this phrase is حجم التجارة الخارجية, not. Okay, let's talk also about the idiomatic translation, which reproduces the message of the original. It prefers to use idioms which do not exist in the original or in the source language. So it's not like metaphorical translation to translate metaphor by metaphor, but it's like to translate an ordinary sentence or utterance to an utterance that has an idiom. And usually, as I said in the Zoom meetings, that when you use idioms and metaphors in your translation will be strong, very strong, and it will be like much close or more, it will be closer to the target or to the source, text or to English. Okay, so here we have the source language. He did not get a thing, translated into the idiom عاد بخفي حنين, or أساء الأدب بالصف, which is translated as he acted out in the classroom. And we have his departure saddened her deeply. That is translated into تفطر قلبها حزنا على فراقه. Now the last question here is which strategy is the best? Actually, it's a very difficult questions and it remains debatable whether it's possible to determine any universals or indeed a general theory of translation that is valid for all texts and situations. So again, you cannot generalize or you cannot fix a strategy that suits all translating all texts with all and all situations. Translators usually deal with different kinds of texts. We can find sometimes religious and legal texts which focus such texts focus on accuracy. Every change in any word could lead to some, let's say, disasters. So in other, let's say, when we talk about literally translation, in which usually there's manipulation, there is adding, deleting, using some adaptation to suit or to please the target reader and to entertain him. So there are many factors that define this or the answer of this question. Be careful that you have to take in consideration the target audience, for example, if they are Muslims or not, the situation, the context, and also to do some respect for the source author. The last thing that I'm going to say in this presentation is some translators tend to focus on the source author. They want to respect what the source author, what he wrote or what he wanted to convey, and such translators usually use semantic translation and accurately translate the texts. However, on the other hand, we have the second type of translators who are oriented or who focus on the target readers, and they usually use such communicative translation, use some adaptation, manipulation, because they focus on the target reader. They want to make the translation natural for him. Simply, the first type of translators depend on what's called foreignization strategy. foreignization strategy بمعنى حتى لو كانت الترجمة غريبة للقارئ، ولكن هم بيحترموا كاتب النص. foreignization strategy. foreignization من كلمة foreign يعني ممكن تكون الترجمة غريبة للقارئ ولكن تركيزهم على الكاتب وعلى السورس تكست، ولكن القسم الثاني اللي بيركز على let's say who focus on the target readers, we call the strategy used domestication strategy. بمعنى ببسطوا بمعنى انهم ببسطوا الكلام to be natural even though at the expense of accuracy. Okay, this is the end of our presentation and see you in other ones.